Miami Hurricanes have a true freshman on their roster right now who's not even turned 18 yet, and he's already being described by multiple teammates as a freak of nature. Yeah, this is going to be a fun season.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, including pregame and postgame for Miami Hurricanes football. And thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. So let's talk about what we've seen 2 weeks into fall camp for the Miami Hurricanes. There have been some ups and some downs, a lot of progress, but a lot of work still to do. I'm quoting Mario Cristobal when I say that. And we've got another scrimmage coming up on Saturday. So let's bring in my colleague at allhurricanes.com, part of the Sports Illustrated family. Luke Chaney is with us. Luke I think he's been out to more practices than Cristobal has at this point. How you doing, Luke?
I'm doing really, really well. Been a fun second week of practice, and I'm excited to see at least to hear. We won't be there to hear what happens from the second scrimmage on Saturday.
Well, and let's start with the player that I was teasing here early on, who's been described as a freak by multiple teammates. You and I were both out there at the media availability yesterday, and we asked his defensive line mate Chance Williams about him and Jared Harrison Hunt. And so Nyjalik Kelly, true freshman, 17 years old, hasn't even turned 18 yet, is describing as a freak of nature. What have you seen out there from Nyjalik Kelly?
It's Nyjalik Kelly. From what I've seen from him is absolutely that. He is a freak of nature. I mean, just is it the advancements in his skill set and how physically superior and athletically superior that he is for a 17-year-old? Remarkable. One of the biggest things, I guess, trait-wise that I've noticed from him is that he is very, very twitchy. He gets off the line like that. Chance Williams spoke about his bend. I think Jafari Harvey also spoke about his bend. You can see that he gets low very, very easily, despite him being 6'4". I think Chance Williams even described him as 6'6". Very long. He has a very long wingspan. Very effective in the run game. Just so explosive, so athletic. And when we look at this 2022 recruiting class, let's say 3 or 4 years from now, right? We're looking at some of the standouts from this class. I'm very confident that Nyjalik Kelly is going to be one of those standouts. I expect him to, even Chance Williams said yesterday that he expects, Nyjalik to contribute a little bit more than a lot of people think, just given that he's a true freshman in a super, super deep defensive line position group. I think Nyjalik Kelly will play early. I don't think he'll start, but I think he will play, and I think he will have a very good career here, at least from what we've seen so far. I mean, I've been absolutely just pleasantly surprised because I didn't expect this type of contribution and this type of instant impact from a 17-year-old true freshman.
Yeah, and he's already got the build where you would never guess he's 17 years old. And he's, of course, Nyjalik Kelly representing South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Dillard. So 305, and in his case, 954, very well represented on this Miami Hurricanes roster. And Luke, it's there's a lot of depth. On paper, sure, I say that because we haven't played a game yet, but I think that the on paper depth is going to translate to big things during the year. when you think about that defensive line, Akheem Mesidor, who transferred in from West Virginia, he was supposedly really dominant in that first scrimmage. Everyone has nice things to say about Mitch Agude from UCLA. We don't forget about Leonard Taylor, who's back, and Jared Harrison Hunt, who we spoke to, and Jafari Harvey, who we've spoken to recently. And so, you mentioned something there with Nyjalik Kelly, how, you don't think he's going to start. But I say, I don't even know if it matters who starts, because they've got so many quality bodies on that D line, and some of these guys are capable of playing tackle and edge. People like Mesidor and Chance Williams, I think, are pretty versatile around that line, and others that it's just going to be such a steady rotation. Guys who don't necessarily start are going to be out there making TFLs and sacks.
Yeah, I mean, even to credit 247, they even noticed that Leonard Taylor has been taking snaps at edge.
Wow.
So just the versatility within that unit. There's been a lot of cross-training going on, guys practicing both inside, outside. The depth is insane. The depth is absolutely insane. And just look at the guys that they added in the offseason. They added 5 instant impact players to the transfer portal. And I think all 5 players are going to contribute in some capacity. 3 players or 3 defensive linemen through its 2022 recruiting class. I think I mentioned this the last time I was on, but when the depth chart comes out, when the starters are released, you really can't pay much attention to it because, as you mentioned, a lot of guys are going to play a lot. It's going to be a lot of rotation. There's going to be a lot of guys who aren't necessarily starters who are going to play some starter reps. That's just a testament to the overall depth of the unit itself. I mean, Mario Cristobal and the Miami staff did just a tremendous job building this in the course of just one offseason. I mean, the only thing that I think is missing from this defensive line is your elite, proven pass rusher. Because even though there's guys who have proven to do that successfully, you don't have your Jalen Phillips, or at least we'll see, but you don't have your Jalen Phillips, your Greg Rousseau. You don't have that top end edge rusher. But, just given the depth of the unit, it wouldn't be a surprise if a Chance Williams, fills into that role. A Jafari Harvey, who, a lot of fans have been just waiting for him to kind of put it all together, if he actually is able to do that. Maybe Nyjalik Kelly has this freshman season, just, Akheem Mesidor. I mean, there's so many guys who could potentially step into that elite pass rusher role. And, I mean, Caleb Johnson mentioned it. Linebacker Caleb Johnson mentioned it in a press conference earlier this week that Miami's defensive line is the best in the nation. I don't know about that, but I think it could be up there, just given the overall lack or the overall, abundance of not only depth, but, quality depth.
So there's one more guy on the D-line I want to ask you about, and just a spoiler alert, he is going to be on the inaugural first team All Donno. I'm going to start releasing these, and these are, Luke, these are not necessarily the best players on the team. Maybe some of them absolutely will be, but these are players that I have an unhealthy fascination with, and that members of our listening audience maybe have an unhealthy fascination with. So we're putting together a first team All Donno. A guy who makes the cut, no question, is Darrell Jackson, the 6'6" defensive tackle who transferred in from Maryland. I snuck in a question about him to Chance. Well, Darrell didn't speak yesterday. Chance Williams did, and I asked Chance about Darrell. First thing he says is, "Oh, the man-child." That's what he said. So, what are you seeing from and hearing about Darrell Jackson so far?
Yeah, he is, as Chance Williams said, an absolute man-child because he is 6'6", 300 pounds, and there's not much, I guess, fat in that 300 pounds. Like he is 300. He's a tank. I mean, for lack of a better term, he's an absolute tank. And just having a guy like that in your defensive line rotation is absolutely huge. Looking at some of the D linemen who were up first in drills, or I guess were the first team in drills that at least what the media saw yesterday, you saw Jafari Harvey, you saw Jared Harrison Hunt. Another one of those guys you saw is Darrell Jackson. Having a guy like that, like I said, in your rotation, someone who can just clog up the run game, because that's what he will do. And just given the monstrous size of him, he just gives something that the rest of the room doesn't have. You know, I mean, the thing with all his depth is that it's nice to have players who could, fill different needs. You have your Chance Williams and your Akheem Mesidor, your Mitch Agude for some of your pass rushing needs. Okay. But I mean, when it comes to stuffing the run, you have your Jared Harrison Hunt. You have Darrell Jackson, who I think will play a sizable role this year. He might even be a starter. And just given his physical attributes, he, as Chance Williams said, is a man-child. He's an absolute freak.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. All right, so you guys want to stick around. We have a lot more to cover here with Luke Chaney from allhurricanes.com and from the Miami Hurricane newspaper. We've got to talk about drops. Have we seen improvement? Have we seen improvement from wide receivers catching passes? We're going to talk about that right after we talk about betonline.net. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. You can find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, college football, college sports, esports, even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports wagering info, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered, guys, and they have all those college football futures. You want to lock in Miami over 8.5 before the season starts. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening right now. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you again for making Locked On Canes your first listen every day. The ultimate college football preview is here. A 7-episode preview with college experts, local team experts, and Odyssey college football insiders. It's everything you need to be ready for the college football season in one spot, guys. Search Ultimate College Football Preview on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Luke Chaney is with me, breaking down 2 weeks of Miami Hurricanes fall camp. So, Luke, last Saturday in the super secret scrimmage that we couldn't watch, there were reports about wide receiver drops. Then on Monday in a practice the media was able to watch, there were wide receiver drops. Now, Thursday was also open to the media. Did you see improvement in receivers holding on to footballs?
I did. Which is great for the team, because I used to briefly go back on Monday a little bit. It was rough. Like it was rough. And it wasn't just like one or two guys. It was just the collective unit. It was mostly end zone work. Just a lot of drops. Footwork wasn't great. Coach Gaddis wasn't happy. It was just a sloppy day of practice, which happens. It happens, but you don't love to see it. It's not encouraging, especially when there's reports coming from, the Saturday scrimmage that there were drops. So, we don't know what happened on that Tuesday or Wednesday practice, just because it was closed off to the media. But from, what I saw Thursday, those drops were definitely cut down. And the receivers did have a very, very good bounce back day of practice. From what I saw, there was only one drop that was a very catchable pass, and that was dropped by Brashard Smith. Aside from that, he was very good. I also saw, and this is just from what I've seen, there could have been, when my back was turned, they all could have been dropping every pass. But at least from
they only want to look good for Luke Chaney. As long as Luke is looking to, like, guys, Luke is watching us, we got to catch everything. Oh, guys, don't worry about it now. Luke's back is turned.
Yeah, no, when I'm watching the DVs, they could care less. But no, so there was also a pass thrown to Mel Brinson that I wouldn't consider it a drop, just because it was thrown very behind him, and I don't think it was very catchable, but it did touch his hand or his hand. I wouldn't consider a drop. Some people would consider it a drop, but aside from the point, besides that, the receivers were definitely a lot better on Thursday. Like I said, less drops. Fork was, more crisp. Coach Gaddis wasn't on his guys as much. So it was definitely a good bounce back day, and definitely very curious to see, what we hear coming out from that scrimmage this Saturday. Like I said, we won't be there, so it'll all just be, word. But it would definitely be encouraging to see, the wide receiver unit really just start to build good practices, good scrimmages ahead of the season.
That'll be fantastic. And another thing that you noted in your takeaways piece from Thursday's practice is, also, of course, running backs are going to catch passes as well. I think that's going to be a big part of this offense. And you referred to Jaylan Knighton, the Rooster, as the most natural-looking running back in the passing game. Tell me what you meant by that.
Yeah, he is the guy that just looks the most natural, running routes, catching passes, turning upfield. He is definitely the most proven production-wise in that room. In the receiving game, he had, I think, 20 catches for 280 yards last year in the receiving game.
And 3 touchdowns too, yeah.
3 touchdowns. Ballpark, I'm not sure if I exactly have those numbers right, but as you mentioned, 3 touchdowns as well. He was very effective in the receiving game. I'm sure a lot of you remember the catch and touchdown he had against UNC. And he was someone that was a natural pass catcher coming out of high school. That's always been seen as a strength for him. In the one practice that the media was able to see everything, he was even used sometimes as an outside receiver.
Oh, I love that.
So it kind of speaks to just the versatility within Jaylan Knighton's game and the almost Swiss Army knife usage that I expect from him this year because, given the depth of the running back room, and to make players happy to whatever, you're going to see guys being like a Jaylan Knighton being used in multiple roles than just as a prototypical running back. I expect there to be formations which have 2 running backs. Sometimes both are in the backfield. Sometimes you might have Jaylan Knighton in the slot or in the boundary, and that just kind of speaks to his game. I think Jaylan Knighton is the most natural pass catcher in that room. Someone like a Henry Parrish is someone who I'm more intrigued. I'm intrigued to see him in the receiving game. I don't really know much about him in that regard, but
yeah, I don't know either because I didn't scout a whole lot of Ole Miss last year, but I do see that he put up not the touch. I don't think he scored any receiving touchdowns, but just catches and yardage wise, very similar stats last year to Knighton. So I was kind of curious about Parrish if we've seen him catching a lot of balls as well.
Yeah, no, he has. He looks very smooth. I mean, one thing I will say with Knighton and Parrish is that they both move similarly, in just that they're guys who like bending runs and bending catches outside, getting outside the tackles. They're real threats in the open field. So I definitely expect to see Parrish being used in the passing game. Someone who I don't think gets talked about enough, just for his pass catching abilities, is Todd Franklin. People kind of box him in as just this bull workhorse, whatever. He can move, guys. He can move. He has light feet. He has really good hands, just given his basketball background. I'm not sure if a lot of you guys know this, but he was actually the top 100 basketball player in the country in middle school. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
He was. It was. So yeah, definitely has that basketball background. His hands from that are a testament to that background. And his hands through the fall and through spring, now through the fall, have been very consistent. He has good hands, and I expect him to be used in the passing game sometimes, especially. I expect him to be used in a lot of 3rd and longs, given that he is a very good pass protector, just given that he is an absolute beast physically. I think we could see Todd Franklin catch the passes and look pretty good while doing so.
We did an episode earlier this week on Locked On Canes about how Tyler Van Dyke was named a top 25 player preseason by ESPN. And I went out on a limb, Luke, saying that he is not only going to live up to, but also exceed the very high expectations. I'm wearing a TVD t-shirt today, so I'm all in. Tyler Van Dyke, is he still, because we spoke to you about 8 days ago, and you said he's looking excellent. Is TVD still looking good?
No, it's just the 8 days. It's just like no. He's looked excellent. He looked really good as usual yesterday. He had a couple really nice deep passes to Xavier Restrepo. I mean, perfect, just picture perfect passes. 40-yard pass to Xavier Restrepo, right in the money. Just his ball placement, especially on deep passes, is just otherworldly. it's truly incredible. He is just a step above everyone else in that unit, and that's not to disrespect, Jake Garcia or Jacurri Brown or Jacurri Brown, but he's just that elite. He's just that good. Jake Garcia has been doing his thing, very good in the short and intermediate game. And someone who I want to talk about a little bit is, Jacurri Brown, just because he got off to a little bit of a rough start in the beginning of fall practice. Not bad throughout the entirety of practices, but just inconsistent. You saw flashes of, growth, and then sometimes he was very erratic. So you really wanted him to start building more consistent practices together, start stringing that consistency. And we're starting to see that. He was pretty solid on Thursday. Good. One thing that has been his kryptonite of sorts is the throwing net, just because my Coach Ponce and, the coaches, they really like emphasizing that net when it comes to rolling out, working on their 20-yard outs. It's just something that they use, and that's something that Jacurri Brown has struggled with a little bit, just consistency-wise, but he was very good with the throwing net on Thursday. He was very good in the, QB wide receiver route combos that they were doing towards the end of the media viewing portion of practice on Thursday. And it's encouraging to see development-wise that you're starting to see that consistency, because we all know about Jacurri Brown that he is not someone that's going to play year one, probably not going to play year two.
Yeah, he might make a cameo in like the Bethune-Cookman game. Other than that, we're not going to see him.
Yeah. But, I mean, you're looking at him, his trajectory as someone who could contend for serious playing time, who could contend to be a starter in that year 3. So, like I mentioned, if you start to see consistency now, start to see growth within his game, growth within his footwork, that's very encouraging for his trajectory to be that potential starter by year 3.
I want to make a note for everybody, whether you're an audio listener or a video viewer. We are going to have on our YouTube channel coming out later today video interviews from their media scrums from Tyler Van Dyke and Mario Cristobal. So you have that to look forward to. And I'm sure I or Luke or someone else is going to ask TVD about his wide receivers catching passes. I asked him about that last week, so maybe I'm kind of afraid to ask him this week because I don't want him to be like, oh, this is the guy who asked me about my receivers every single week. So maybe I'll let Luke do it today. But Luke, last thing, sir, before we let you run, what do you think the Canes want to and need to accomplish in the second scrimmage on Saturday? Because from where I sit, the offense needs to counterpunch, because it sounds like the defense won the day the first time around. What do you think needs to happen in the second scrimmage?
Yeah, so reports coming back from that first scrimmage was that advantage defense, advantage defensive line, want to see more pushback from the offensive line. You want to see that improvement that a lot of the alignment have been talking about. So we'll watch out for that. Biggest thing I'm watching out for, and my biggest concern on this offense, is the wide receivers. Want to see them cut down on drop passes. Want to see them just build more consistency within the unit. You would like to see some of those potential starters really start to rise to the top and kind of cement themselves as those starters, because I really think Xavier Restrepo is the only one who's really done that. So biggest thing that I am waiting to hear about is how the wide receivers play, because that will just be huge for the rest of the offense.
You want to follow this man on Twitter at Luke_Chaney4. Check out his work at allhurricanes.com and the Miami Hurricane newspaper. Luke, thank you so much, man. I'll see you out there in a little bit.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I love being on here.
Awesome. Yeah, we love having Luke. He does a fantastic job. Guys, keep it locked, because you remember a couple days ago, we talked about the Washington Twins and a certain other college program heavily trying to flip them from Miami. Well, we got some very good news on Thursday night about their solid commitment to the U. Keep it locked right here to Locked On Canes. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We are available free wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, Google, Odyssey, and available free on YouTube. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So there was early in the week a whole lot of noise about the Louisville Cardinals heavily recruiting Miami verbal commits, the Washington Twins, Robbie Washington, 4-star wide receiver, 4-star athlete technically, but he's going to play wide receiver, and Bobby Washington, 3-star linebacker. They've been verbally committed to Miami for months. Louisville has been making a heavy push, as they've been doing with a lot of South Florida players, right? They recently landed a verbal from Stanquan Clark and from William Foles out of South Florida. They were trying to flip the Washington Twins. So the Washington Twins were out Thursday night high school action last night at Fort Lauderdale Cardinal Gibbons. They were out there. That was, I think I already said it, Thursday night, last night, Thursday night. We're recording this on Friday. And they put it to rest. They were asked about their commitment to Miami, the interest in Louisville. They have canceled plans, according to Kane Sport. They have canceled plans to take an official visit to Louisville. And according to John Garcia at Sports Illustrated, Bobby Washington said, quote, "Got to stick with the crib," he said. And then Robbie was asked about his recruitment. He said, no, done. He said, done to Miami. And he added, yes, sir, when asked if he and Bobby were headed to play football for Miami. So obviously, I know what some of you are going to say in the comments. It could still change, right? You know, it's August now. Nobody signs their national letters of intent until December at the earliest. But I think that's a really good sign for people like me who really want the Washington Twins to stick with their Miami commit. They are doing whatever they can to put the Louisville rumors and reports to bed. So I love that. That is a very positive update. And I'm glad that, any of you who caught wind of this stuff on social media, the message boards, or my show, I think it was on Wednesday when we talked about the Washington Twins in Louisville. I'm glad you guys kept it really civil. Like, don't ever, if you think a recruit may be wavering or something, don't be mean on social media. You're not accomplishing anything. So I'm glad you guys were cool about it. So I mentioned earlier, throughout the next couple of weeks, before Miami takes the field against Bethune-Cookman, we are going to be releasing first team all Donno. I'm going to go 11 players, first team all Donno, players that either me personally or some of you guys in our audience have just like an unhealthy fascination with, players that we just really root for and we want to see succeed and ball out this year. I already tipped my hand. I'm going to give you 3 first team all Donno. We'll give you some more throughout the next week and a half or so. I tipped my hand to this when we were talking with Luke. 6'6", 300+ pound defensive tackle transfer from Maryland, Darrell Jackson, or is it Darrell Jackson? I got to confirm the pronunciation of that. But Mr. Jackson, I am telling you guys, first team all Donno. This is a player I have been tracking since the day he transferred to the U in the portal. And I think that with his athleticism, his reach, and that man-child nature of his, I think he's going to really dominate. Let me give you a couple more. I'll give you another transfer portal guy who's first team all Donno. I have a fascination with this player, Colby Young. And another, I have fascinations with players with very long wingspans. Colby Young, 6'4" wide receiver, massive wingspan, transferred in from junior college. He's had some good work so far in fall camp. And then the third one that I'll give to you is, and I think this guy is going to be a starter and one of the featured players this year, so I'm not breaking any news here, but another transfer portal guy, Caleb Johnson, transfer linebacker from UCLA. He might be the single most important transfer Miami landed this year because it's at a position of great need. So I think Caleb Johnson is going to solidify a position that without his presence wouldn't be very deep this year. And so those are the 3 first team all Donno that we're going to debut. 3 transfer portal guys, Darrell Jackson, Colby Young, and Caleb Johnson. So folks, remember on our YouTube channel later on today, make sure you subscribe to that. We are going to have videos posted from Tyler Van Dyke and Mario Cristobal. And thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. Get more on the ACC by making Locked On ACC your second listen every day. Candace Cooper and the local experts of Locked On take you across the conference in 30 minutes. Locked On ACC. We will talk to you guys again. We will have weekend episodes, by the way. So we will talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team